Good morning, students. It is the second video of the chapter The Enemy, written by Paul S. Buck, who is the American writer, but she spent most of her time in America, not but in China. So here you will know all about her that I would like to tell you. Here the challenges that are faced by the protagonist, they are Dr. Sadao and Hannah. What are the challenges that they faced? Really, their life was not so unhappy. They were quite a happy couple even after the death of Sadao's father, who was ambitious. Though they married on the consent of Sadao's father, they had 2 children, but the enemy who comes at their doorstep really made a great stirring in their life. They were so worried what to do and what not to do. It was a conflict of duty as a doctor and as a nationalist that Dr. Sadao had to struggle. Hannah had to struggle from this very idea that whether she would give company to her husband or the native land, America, where she belonged to. She was not able to understand, but she decided that her husband must be cooperated because she loved him and she had already accepted the nationality of Japan. So here, these are the points that we have to discuss. I've already discussed so many things about this very Paul S. Buck in the first video. Though I would like to tell you something about her. She was a Nobel Prize winner, Pulitzer Prize winner, believes in brotherhood and equality. What a great and wonderful idea is this to maintain in our thought and action, for which she is destined and really worked and wanted to unite. So really we shall like to know. Humanism transcends. What does humanism transcend? You can see the condition of the people in the war, that they are pointing their guns at each other. They are in a mood to kill. It is not the feeling that one should try, but for the sake of their country and countrymen. The soldiers have to take weapons in their hands and fight. This story reveals the conflict between East and West. Japan is in East and America is in West. Japan was really at climax and it was one of the apex. Japan was with Germany and Italy were the leading group of the Second World War. So it is quite brainstorming event that how to cope up with such problems that arise in their life. When the war continued between US and Japan, really at the time Japanese were superior over Americans. But something mishappened. Japanese did not like Americans. They always considered as Indian and Pakistanis. The Israelites and Palestinians, they are at loggerheads. America and Russia, these countries are like North Pole and South Poles. They never trust. Like that, it was the condition as Australia and America and cricket, you know. After recognizing the man lying in the seashore, Sadao and Hannah recognized on the basis of the cap that he had put on his head that he was an American. He was a young man, but he had lost his blood so much that the American must be brought to the house, otherwise he would die. After consenting each other, both of them just brought him to the house. After packing the wound with the sea moss that was strewed the place, the man moaned with pain in his stomach but did not awaken. The best thing that they could do would be to put him back in the sea, Sadao said, answering himself, muttering. The bleeding was stopped for a moment. He stood up and dusted the sand from his hands. Hannah said steadily, undoubtedly, that would be the best to put in the sea again. But she still looked at him. If they sheltered, what was the reason? If they sheltered a white man in their house, they should be arrested. And if they turned him over a prisoner, he would certainly die. What was the conflict? That the American enemy would die. So the kindest thing was to be done. And they were staring with a curious repulsion upon the inert figure. So there was something about him that looks American. He had a battered cap and written a sailor from an American warship. They spelled it out, U.S. Navy. The man was a prisoner of war. And he had escaped. Hannah cried very softly. That is why he is wounded. So thou knew all these things. So thou hesitated again. The strange thing was that if the man were whole, he could turn him over to the police without difficulty. If he cared nothing for him, he was his enemy. All Americans were Sadao's enemies. He was only a common fellow, and you see how foolish his face was. But since he was wounded, he stopped. He should not be thrown back into the sea. And so, but they had a cushion. What the servants would think. Servants must think. Servants would doubt. What would happen? Really? What was the reason? Now both of them agreed together, lifted the man, and he was very light, like a fowl that had been half starved for a long time. So here, his arms hanging, they carried him up the steps, brought him to the door of the house, and they brought him into the passage, and they kept him in the bedroom of Sadao's father. Everything in his room was so well kept, well preserved. Nothing was touched. The quilt was covered with flowered silk, and there was mattress. It was a matted floor, but he was dirty. Hannah murmured in distress, and she did not like to touch him, though her husband wished That's why he brought. She served him. When Yumi was called for washing him, she did not like to wash because she was known to this very figure. He was a male and he was an American, and she had a fear. What was the fear? That if she served him, certainly she would be arrested, and she was afraid. There was a gardener, an old servant who had been working for a long, long time. So here, when Dr. Sadao was informed that Yumi refused, Sadao wanted to clean himself, but Hana, as a devoted husband, she did not let him do so. Really, she became angry. Hana became angry with Yumi, and she wanted him to go, but she did not speak. And after a few minutes, what did happen? Sadao wanted him to operate, but there was one problem. He just went to his room and brought the emergency bag which he used to carry whenever he was called on. He had put on that very cap in which there was light, emergency light with which he could operate. And now this very gardener was also unwilling. He did not want that he should remain in the house. Both of them wanted to go away. But before that, Sadao told Hana to give him anesthetic. She had never given anesthesia to anyone else. She could not bear the smell of this very anesthesia. When the swabs were made, and as the instruction was issued by Dr. Sadao, she really did like that. But when she started giving, she felt vomiting, and without informing him, she went out into the garden and vomited there. Dr. Sadao could hear her vomiting out in the garden, but he could not leave. He was probing where the bullet was. He really found the bullet, and when she came back, she was instructed to give the anesthesia, that if he starts breathing very feebly, he had to stop it because it was essential. And searching with the device, Sadao could find the bullet just near the kidney, and he had such expert hand that he operated him. He removed the kidney, removed the bullet which was found near the kidney, and if it had dust or any kind of misappropriation could have been done, really this man would have become paralyzed. So in this way, he saves the life of the prisoner who was feeble and weak. He was given shelter, food, medicine, but both of them were quite anxious, very much worried. What would be the next step? Whether they would be arrested. If the servants leak the facts to anyone else, and if anyone knows about his presence, certainly it would be disastrous. Thank you, children. I will tell you something more in the next video. It is a very, very long chapter. So I will tell you in parts all the things. Thank you.